Oh, well, there we go. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Good Grief Seminar. Jinx, are we able to see the slides?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. All righty. We will go ahead and get started. So let me. Hello. Well, there we go. All right. All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is Brittany Hathaway, owner of Venture Mobile PLLC. And I'm going to let Jinx introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Jinx Hamilton. I am the lead death doula and also a licensed massage therapist.
And I forgot my credentials. I currently hold a master's of public health, and I am also a licensed massage therapist and massage therapy instructor. All right, so to get started, so good grief. This is going to be a seminar on grief and bereavement. So, for some context of what we're going to be going over, we're going to be discussing what is grief, the different types of grief, mourning and bereavement, how does grief present, grief support, both personal for yourself and professional, how professionals can help you throughout the grief process, death and dying, end of life support, death as a journey, and then how Venture Mobile can help you and your loved ones through this process. All right, and then we'll have a little Q&A at the end if needed. All right, so before we get into the presentation, well, before we get into the bulk of the content here, we first need to establish what is grief. So the National Institute of Health is going to identify grief as the primary internal experience or reaction to an event such as death. So, or another type of loss. So a lot of times we think of grief as, oh, we're grieving because someone died. Well, grief can present in many different scenarios. So the loss of a job, the end of a relationship, whether it be a breakup, a divorce, loss of community, whether that be through being shunned, being, disowned by your family, or having to leave a specific like cultural community. Identity loss or shift. This can be any type of identity, whether it be gender identity or just any type of personal identity that you feel, sometimes in motherhood we experience this where we feel that loss of identity and you can grieve that. Loss of possessions, loss of a home, loss of a car, any type of loss, really. I mean, there's not one thing to say, oh, you can grieve that. So it can be experienced through various different types of loss. And all of that is valid, in case no one's told you. Okay. So a couple different types of grief. We're not just, this will not be every single type of grief to exist. Disclaimer before I get into it. All right. So anticipatory grief. So there is an impending loss. So this could be a loved one has been diagnosed with end stage cancer and they have been given 6 months to live. Now, with a terminal illness, you will likely experience that anticipatory grief where you know it's coming and you are feeling the emotions that come along with that. Um, so, caregivers and other loved ones can experience grief in this time, and the individual, the dying individual who is experienced this transition is also going to be grieving. So a lot of times we look at the family or the loved ones, but we also need to take a look at the individual in their grief because they have just been told that their life is ending, and quickly. And that carries a heavy weight. And we need to be aware of that. And we need to be able to recognize that within ourselves and those around us. So, common grief. So, this is the one where we think of when it's like, okay, you've lost someone or you've experienced that loss, what comes after? Or, yeah, whether it's directly after or delayed grief. So, you may feel this grief immediately or you may feel it further on down the road. Grief is not a linear occurrence where just over time, it's really heavy at first, and then over time, the amount of grief you experience goes down. No, that's not how grief works at all. Time does not make grief go away. Okay. So this conventional experience of grief is the one we may be more familiar with. So now collective grief. So early in the last slide, we had talked about a natural disaster or something that may happen that causes like the loss of property or something in the community, or an individual who has been a active member of the community may pass away and the community may experience a collective grief. So this is a shared grief experience among people. This can present in, like I said, natural disasters or some other type of catastrophic event, or there has been loss felt by numerous individuals. And then disenfranchised grief. This is one of my favorite types of grief to explore because another word for it is invalidated grief. So grief that is perceived as unworthy of grief. Like you shouldn't feel this way. So let's say you lose a pet and someone's like, well, you shouldn't be feeling that way about losing a pet. It's not like you lost a person. No, your grief is very valid, and what you're experiencing is grief, no matter what society or someone may tell you about that. Okay. So, whatever you may be experiencing, and that just doesn't just apply to pet deaths, that applies to any type of loss where you may be feeling grief. And it's important that we recognize that as a valid form of grief to really combat the shame, the internalized shame that comes with disenfranchised grief, because we may think, well, I shouldn't feel this way. Something's wrong with me. Nothing's wrong with you. Grief is often unexpected and comes in many different, types of presentation and for many different situations. Okay, so we have grief. Now we have mourning and bereavement. And a lot of people will use these terms interchangeably, but it's an important distinction that we need to make to understand what us or another individual is going through. So mourning. Mourning is defined as the outward expression of grief. So grief is more of like an internal experience. Mourning is going to be more so the kind of almost like the rituals surrounding grief. So this can be funerals or other types of physical expressions or rituals. So anything that is outwardly seen, like a public expression of grief. And these are often determined by our culture and our personal perceptions of grief and what is acceptable. So there is no right or wrong way to grieve, so as long as you're not causing harm to anybody, of course, but or yourself. But there is you might see in different cultures where they may have very different ideas of acceptable mourning. So definitely reflect and leave in the comments below what your cultural ideas of mourning are or what your customs are. We'd really like to hear about how different people mourn. Okay. And then bereavement. So this is often used interchangeably with grief as well. So it's the experience of loss and deprivation. So it's recognizing a profound absence. So an individual in bereavement or an individual who is bereaved may be having difficulty adjusting to life without their loved one or without their community or their former identity. So they are experiencing bereavement based on that loss. So the different presentations of grief. So if we look at the physical presentations, we may see fatigue, headaches, changes in appetite, whether you're eating for comfort or you're unable to eat, you have no appetite. Physical pain, tension, a big part as massage therapists where we see people holding these physical pain or tension is the shoulders and the back of the head. And then cardiovascular issues, you hear that term, a broken heart syndrome, where that is an actual cardiovascular phenomenon that presents in profound grief. And then emotional, so shock, despair, sadness, anger. You ever hear the 5 stages of grief? That those I have my own thoughts and opinions. That'll be a different presentation. And then psychological or behavioral, so social withdrawal, intense feelings of guilt, confusion. Why is this happening? What do I do now? Difficulty concentrating, loss of hope or direction in life. And it's important that you're able to recognize these so you can get help that correlates with what you're experiencing. So we'll go over that more in how different, how we may be able to help and how different resources might be able to help you. Okay. So some support. So self-care, getting adequate rest, journaling, self-awareness, like I said, important to be able to recognize these things. Sticking to a routine, that may be difficult, especially if the individual that you have lost or the other loss that you are experiencing affects your daily life. Then you may need to make some adjustments to your routine, but a routine can offer some scarce sense of normalcy and more so stability in this time. And then individualized support. So attending individual therapy sessions, talking with a friend or a peer, seek support from a pastor or minister or another clergy member, depending on your faith or religion or lack thereof. So seeking help from someone who can help you navigate these changes. That can also be a grief coach. So with Venture, I am a certified grief coach where I do individual and group sessions that can help you navigate, what comes next. Group or community support, attending grief support group meetings, being amongst other people that are going through a similar experience of grief. Volunteer within the community, get out and be amongst other people, versus self-isolation. Social media support groups and forums can be very helpful, whether that be Reddit, Facebook, or other websites where these groups may be. And then religious or cultural support. So again, seeking help within your church or organization within your community. Okay. All right, so now we've talked about grief, bereavement, and mourning. So now we're going to move into death and dying. So dying is the physical process of the body approaching death. So, the body is beginning to shut down. There's breakdowns of various bodily functions. There may be a period of emotional distress, withdrawal from the individual. This is where we will often see that anticipatory grief taking place. It also kind of depends on how quickly the dying process goes. Some people, it takes a long time. Some people die very quickly. So once the dying process has started. And then this is where you may see individuals having visions of loved ones that have already passed on. And then other types of, visions or hallucinations or just general changes in the perception of their environment. Oftentimes they may also be unconscious, refusing food, really just shutting down. And then death. So this is the end stage of dying. So it's all the vital bodily functions have stopped at this point. There's no pulse. There's no brain activity left. And then there will be no response to external stimuli. The person is gone. So this is where, after this point, that's when we see the more traditional grief starting to take place from the loved ones, caretakers, other individuals, involved in this person's life. So end of life support. This is where our death doula services or caregiving services, really from anyone, even the family, comes into play. So that end of life support. So for the dying individual, oftentimes we look at the family and loved ones and what should we do for them? How should we help them? But we're not looking at the dying individual. What do they want? What should we do for them? So comfort and palliative care, hospice support, so pain management, this is the more clinical type of support. Environmental support, ensuring the environment is peaceful as the individual desires it to be, not what the caregiver, loved ones think it should be, but what the individual has expressed their wants are. Now, if the individual is unable to provide that information, then we should seek to make that environment as peaceful as possible. Okay. Physical touch. So this could be massage therapy. This could be just holding someone's hand, a light touch, any type of, physical touch that's comforting to the individual, even if they're not conscious at this point. Spiritual care. This is where you'll often see chaplains coming into play. So they are visiting the individual or a religious clergy member, depending on the religion or cultural needs, if any at all. And then, like I said, involve the dying person in their care. Don't assume that you know what they want. If they're able to express their wants and needs, let them. This is not about you. This is about them. Okay. So now for family and loved ones, this is where it becomes about you as the loved one. Grief support, individual services, like we discussed in the previous slide. Practical support of everyday tasks. So if you have a death doula, this is where they can come in to help you with like light housekeeping, meal prep. If you need help running errands, a death doula or a in-home caregiver can help with that. Spiritual care chaplaincy is not just for the dying person, it's also for the family. So they can help you navigate these times. And then regular check-ins. You can do regular check-ins as a, let's say someone from Venture Mobile, we're doing regular check-ins weekly, twice weekly, more than that, depending on the needs of the individual. A friend can do check-ins, a pastor or a religious service member, or a hospice support professional. And then educational support. So discussing, kind of like we're doing today, providing education to help the family recognize what's next, what to do now. Okay. So now I am going to move this over to Jinx. She is going to be discussing positive and negative perceptions of death.
Thanks, Brittany.
Welcome.
So death is a journey. And I think one of the most important things about death and what affects death the most is how we perceive it. With negative perceptions of death, i.e., everyone around the dying person having a doom and gloom outlook, oh God, we're losing you, the constant crying, the loved ones really just expressing that profound loss. It does have an effect on how the dying person sees their death. Whereas, people who in the end are surrounded by those who are, sharing memories and being positive and focusing on the time that they had versus the time they will no longer have, they tend to die peacefully, more relaxed, more calm. These are taken from quotes of my lost loved ones at their end of life, and I'll be using them as examples going forward. So these are the negative perceptions that I have heard from my lost loved ones. This is the end. I'm losing this fight. If I accept this, I'm just giving up. I'm helpless to stop this. Death is painful. I will lose who I am. I'm losing who I am. I'm scared of what's next. I'm scared there's nothing next. Death is coming for me. My family is losing me. I'm scared to be alone. Most of these promote a sense of fear, anxiety, guilt, regret. The dying person feels they should have fought harder, done things different, that they are causing grief for their family. Negative perceptions of death usually end up making the death process more scary and more uncomfortable than it naturally is. Positive perceptions. Death is a natural conclusion. My pain is almost over. I'm ready for what comes next. I'm ready to go home to be with God. These perceptions promote a calm, relaxing, peaceful death. Everything is taken care of. There's nothing left to be done. Everyone I love is ready and prepared. And that brings me to the ideal death. We plan our funerals. We plan where we're going to hold the service. We plan what kind of service it will be. We choose what our headstones will say or what our urns will look like. We plan who is inheriting what of our possessions when we die. We plan what's going to happen with our pets, with our homes, with our belongings. We plan who's getting our money and how much of it. We plan so much in our lives. Our graduations, our birthdays, we plan anniversaries, we plan for big events. We don't plan the moment of our death. I invite you all to answer the following questions for yourself. What does your ideal death look like? Where do you want to be? Do you want to be at home, in your own home, surrounded by your things? Do you want to be in a facility, surrounded by staff and medical equipment? Do you want to be somewhere in nature, or perhaps a foreign country? Who do you want to be with you? Friends, family, lovers, your children? Would you like to be surrounded by staff who are going to remain impartial or not make things emotional? What would you like to see? Home videos? A favorite movie? Would you like to read a book or have a book read to you? Would you like to see pictures? Maybe a scrapbook? What would you like to hear? A loved one's laugh on a recording? A song that comforts you? Sounds of nature? What would you like to smell? In an age where we have candles that mimic every smell imaginable, air fresheners, perfumes, we have aromatherapy for days. What would you like to smell? What would you like to feel physically? The comforting weight of your favorite blanket? The softness of your favorite shirt? The pages of a treasured book? What would you personally need to pass peacefully? A priest? Permission to let go? Reassurance that there's nothing left to chance? Death is a personal, intimate, and different experience from person to person. Every person's ideal death is going to be unique to them. By changing the perception and planning the moment of death, we can give people more agency in the end of their life. By giving people a chance to plan their ideal death, we're making sure that they have everything they need to feel comforted, at peace, to feel calm, to feel loved, supported, and cared about. We give them the opportunity to really make their passing as peaceful as possible, as little discomfort as possible, with as little left to chance as there can be. Hopefully, this will lead to less fear, anxiety, and dread, being replaced by comfort from all the senses. I personally think it's important to make sure that, when we're coping with the loss of a loved one, when we're preparing for that, that we put as much focus into what they want as they die as what the funeral is going to look like, what the aftermath looks like. I think it's important that as we send our loved ones off, we make sure that they're comfortable and supported and that they have exactly what they're asking for. I feel like as a culture, we've seen death as something scary, unbeatable, a fight to be won. But death is a natural conclusion. It is something we will all experience. It's a journey we will all undergo. It's a journey that is debated across every culture. What comes next? What comes after? But I think it's important that the last moments we have here in this plane aren't scary, aren't filled with dread, aren't filled with anxiety. I do believe it's important for our culture to change that perception. I'm going to hand it back over to Brittany, who will talk about how we can help.
Thank you very much, Jinx. I love how elegantly you talk about death. Makes me feel better about the end. Makes it, just hearing the way that you talk about it so beautifully, it makes me feel as though I don't have anything to be afraid of. And imagine how much that will help other people as we continue in the work that we do. Thank you so much for sharing that. So yeah, definitely providing that sense of agency and advocacy for the dying individual to die in a way that is best for them. I would encourage everybody to comment on this video and what does your ideal death look like? It can be anything, honestly. We would love to hear about your ideal death and what that looks like for you. So, Venture. So, how can we help? Venture came about as a way to meet a need. So, death, as Jinx was saying, there is a lot of negative perception of death, and Venture Mobile really seeks to combat that and offer a different perspective by helping an individual have their ideal death or as close to their ideal death as possible. So, like you have birth doulas that help with your ideal birth experience, within reason and with the confines of things that can happen during birth. Death is the same. So, we offer end of life support for individuals and families and caregivers. We partner with hospice agencies also to offer support for the dying individual and their family. So helping to ensure that these non-clinical, emphasis on non-clinical, end of life needs are met. So we're not offering like medication or any support like that. We're offering more of that companionship, the gentle touch, the helping the family with end of life planning, whatever that may look like, going with them to the funeral home to plan the funeral, or helping the individual, write their last will and testament, whatever that may look like for the individual and whatever they may need. Massage therapies, so offering that soothing touch to help ease any potential physical pain and reinforce that calming environment. We do this bedside, or if the individual is able to get up and get on a massage table without significant physical discomfort, that is an option as well, or chair massage. Really, again, whatever the individual needs. And then grief coaching. So I am a certified grief coach, so offering coaching on grief and coping to the dying or grieving individuals. And again, grief, that's not just for individuals experiencing loss because of death. That's any type of loss. Remember, all loss, all grief is valid. Okay. So if you would like more information, please comment below, or you can visit our website to see our prices and what we do at venturemobile.info. And then for additional questions or concerns, or if you just want to talk, 512-953-3730. We serve the Central Texas area for now, except for our grief coaching or even our death doulas. We can offer virtual support anywhere in the United States. Just the massage therapy part is the one that's a little bit more difficult to be more nationwide with. I wish we could massage people through a screen, but that would be a whole thing with licensing. Can't even imagine how complicated that would make things. So, feel free to visit our website. Give us a call. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook. This will be, if you're viewing this on our YouTube channel or live, leave a comment. Let us know how we did. Let us know how some types of services that you may want to see in the future. We're hoping to grow and expand as the year goes on and reach more areas and really help more and more and more people and just continue to grow as a company and reach as many people as we can. Because death and grief should never be something to look at as something to be fixed. It's something that we all experience as human beings, and we should be able to experience these things with dignity, with validation, with support. Okay, so please leave a comment, like this video, subscribe to our channel. There will be many more videos to come on different aspects of grief, dying, massage therapy, and comment below a topic you would like us to cover. We would love to hear from you. All right, and like I said, leave any questions below. We'll do our best to answer them as they come in. And thank y'all very much for coming to the Good Grief Seminar on Grief.
Indeed. Thanks to everyone watching and everyone who will watch.
Thanks, Jinx. All right. Bye, everyone.